On Valentine's Day, Savannah Hayes posted a picture of her marriage certificate with Caleb Vanderholt, the heir to the Vanderholt fortune. The caption on her Instagram read, "After all this time, I finally married the man of my dreams and got rid of that obsessive shadow I couldn't shake." In the corner of the photo, a sliver of a dark, muscular arm was visible, being violently pinned to the muddy ground by a security guard. That was my arm. I was the one who, every night, fed her a drop of my own lifeblood to suppress the rare toxin that ran through her veins. Because of my darker skin and my roots in the Louisiana bayou, she found me crude and uncivilized, a secret to be kept buried. She had no idea that the only reason she was alive and well enough to marry another man was because of the blood conjure I had bound to her heart. Now that she had pledged herself to another, the conjure would see it as a betrayal. The backlash was coming. I looked at the picture on my phone, wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth, and crushed the small totem I held in my hand, the source of our bond. "If you think my blood is so dirty," I whispered, "then you can give back the life it's been keeping you." At the exact moment she and Caleb exchanged rings, a crimson bloom erupted across her chest. Her life expectancy, 0 days. 1. If you think my blood is so dirty, then you can give back the life it's been keeping you. I whispered the words, my fingers tightening. The small, hand-carved totem in my palm let out a faint whine, like splintering wood, before I crushed it into dust. A viscous, sweet-smelling sap oozed between my fingers, mixing with the blood I'd coughed up when the security guards tackled me, and dripped into the muddy patch of grass. On my phone screen was the wedding photo of Savannah Hayes and Caleb Vanderholt. He, the handsome heir, she, the stunning socialite. A perfect match. Her smile was radiant in the photo. The caption read, "Got rid of that obsessive shadow I couldn't shake." In the corner of the frame was my arm, pinned by 2 grim-faced security guards. Dark, thick with muscle, it was completely out of place amid the manicured perfection of their Hamptons wedding. "My name is Kai. I'm from the Bayou. 3 years ago, Savannah came down to Louisiana on a photography trip. A rare, hereditary toxin in her blood, dormant for years, suddenly flared up. She was dying. It was me who ignored the warnings of my community's elders, who spent half of my life forced to bind her to me with a blood conjure. The conjure fed on my lifeblood and nested in her heart. As long as I loved her, the magic would convert my vitality into a pure energy that kept the toxin in her system suppressed. For 3 years, every single night, I would pierce the skin over my heart and draw a single drop of blood to feed the totem, which would then transfer its power to her, hundreds of miles away. I thought I was saving her. I thought it was love. In her eyes, I was just some backwoods hick with dark skin. An inconvenience she couldn't get rid of. An obsessive shadow. She thrived on the life my blood gave her, all while throwing herself into the arms of another man without a second thought. Today was her wedding day. It was also the final day of our contract. With the totem destroyed, the conjure bound to her heart would immediately sense the betrayal and begin to viciously turn on its host. Inside the grand wedding hall, Caleb was just about to slide a diamond ring onto Savannah's finger. Suddenly, a spiderweb of crimson bloomed across the bodice of her white Vera Wang gown. "Ah!" She let out a blood-curdling scream and collapsed backward. The $10 million dress was instantly stained scarlet. The scene erupted into chaos. Guests screamed in terror. Caleb, his face a mask of fury, held her and roared, "Somebody call a doctor. Call an ambulance." I watched the viral TikToks of the incident popping up on my feed, and I smiled. Blood was still trickling from my lip, but I couldn't feel the pain. "Savannah, this is just the beginning. Everything I gave you, I'm about to take back with interest." The security guards holding me down let go, their faces pale with shock. I slowly pushed myself up from the mud, brushing the dirt from my clothes. Then I turned and vanished into the shadows of a service alley. Savannah was rushed to the best private hospital in Manhattan. The entire cardiology department, filled with the most renowned specialists in the country, gathered to consult on her case. They were utterly baffled. Every single diagnostic tool showed her heart failing at an unbelievable rate. Her blood vessels were constricting, her heart muscle tissue dying. It was like watching a time-lapse video of a flower withering in seconds. They couldn't find a cause. All they could do was watch as her vital signs flatlined. Savannah lay in the ICU, a mess of tubes and wires, her face a deathly gray mask of despair. "Help me. Caleb, please help me. It hurts so much." It felt like 1,000 insects were gnawing at her chest from the inside, a pain so excruciating she wished she could just die. Caleb stood by her bedside, his expression so dark it seemed to suck the light out of the room. He had already thrown $1 million worth of diagnostic equipment against a wall and screamed at a dozen different doctors, but no one could give him an answer. "Useless. You're all useless." Savannah's mother collapsed to the floor, sobbing. "It's Kai. It has to be that boy from the bayou. He did this 3 years ago. He was the one who saved her. He said her life was tied to his." The words struck Caleb like a bolt of lightning. He remembered that quiet, dark-skinned man who was always trailing behind Savannah, the one she dismissed as some obsessed hick from the sticks she couldn't shake. It turned out he wasn't the disease. He was the cure. Find him. Get every PI in contact on my payroll and find him now. Caleb's order echoed through the city's underworld. The Vanderholt family's immense power began to move, mobilizing countless resources and contacts. Everyone, from corporate investigators to street-level informants, was looking for a man from the Louisiana bayou named Kai. In the hospital corridor, 2 young nurses were whispering to each other. "Did you hear? The bride in the ICU, the Vanderholt fiancée, she's not going to make it." "What happened?" "She just collapsed at the altar. The videos are all over the internet." "No idea. I heard she messed with some bad juju or something. Mr. Vanderholt is about to tear this place apart." "Damn. Guess money can't buy you everything, can it?" Looked like she was knocking on death's door when they brought her in. "Keep your voice down. If someone hears you, we're fired." They didn't know that I was standing just a few feet away in the shadows of a fire escape stairwell. I had changed into a clean set of clothes, a baseball cap pulled low over my face. I stood there, silently watching the entrance to the ICU. I could feel the conjure's agony and rage, and I could feel it draining Savannah's life force drop by drop. She was dying, and I didn't feel a shred of pity. She deserved this. The Vanderholt family's people searched for a day and night, but found nothing. I had scrubbed my presence from the city. They couldn't find me. Savannah's condition worsened. The doctors told the family to prepare for the worst. Caleb was losing his mind. Using back channels, he managed to find the location of my small community in the bayou. A private jet took off in the middle of the night, heading for that remote corner of Louisiana. 3 Caleb's jet landed in the only clearing in our bayou community, the rotor wash blasting the cypress trees and rattling the windows of the raised cabins. He stormed down the ramp, flanked by a team of men in black suits. The Kumu, our community's most respected elder, blocked their path with her walking stick. "You're not welcome here, city folk," she said, her voice ancient and steady. Caleb shoved her aside, his eyes bloodshot with rage. "I'm looking for Kai. Get him out here now." The Kumu stared at him coldly. "Kai broke the traditions of our people to save an outsider. He has been cast out. Whether he lives or dies is no longer our concern. I don't care. If I don't see him today, I'll burn this whole swamp to the ground." Caleb's patience was gone. His bodyguards stepped forward, their hands inside their jackets. The air grew thick with tension. Just then, I stepped out from the cabin behind the Kumu. "I'm right here." Caleb's gaze snapped toward me, sharp as a knife. He rushed forward and grabbed the collar of my shirt. "You did this, didn't you? Give me the cure. Now." I looked at him, my face a blank mask. "There is no cure. You son of a bitch." Caleb swung a fist at my face. I didn't move. The punch landed hard, a flash of white-hot pain across my cheek. I spit a mouthful of blood and grinned. "You kill me, Savannah dies instantly. Go on. Try it." Caleb's fist froze in midair. The fury in his eyes slowly gave way to fear. He couldn't afford to lose this bet. The locals gathered around, whispering among themselves. "That's the big shot from New York? Acts like a rabid dog. Look at Kai, though. Took that punch and didn't even blink. He's one of ours, all right." Caleb was on the verge of a complete breakdown. He looked at me, a storm of murder and desperation in his eyes. He knew I wasn't lying. This kind of bayou folk magic was beyond his comprehension. He didn't dare call my bluff. "What is it you want?" he ground out through clenched teeth. I looked him straight in the eye and said, each word deliberate. "You want me to save her? Fine. You will kneel." and you will beg me." The air turned to ice. Even Caleb's bodyguards looked at me as if I'd lost my mind. "Making the one and only Van der Holt heir kneel? You might as well ask him to stop breathing." Caleb's face turned a shade of purple, the veins in his forehead throbbing. "How dare you humiliate me? You're the one who's begging," I replied evenly. I turned my back on him and started walking toward the cabin. My patience is running out. With every step I took, I could feel Savannah's life slipping further away. I knew that Caleb had a way of monitoring her condition in real time. "Stop!" Caleb's voice was trembling. I stopped but didn't turn around. A heavy thud echoed behind me. Thump! It was the sound of knees hitting hard-packed earth. I turned. The proud, untouchable Caleb Van der Holt was on his knees, his arrogant head bowed. "I'm begging you, save her." This was the first step of my revenge. I didn't want his life. I wanted to take the pride that he and Savannah held so dear, tear it to shreds, and grind it into the dirt. The locals were stunned. The whispers grew louder. "My God, he's actually kneeling. For a woman, too." Threw away all his dignity. What kind of woman is worth all that? I walked up to him and looked down at his bowed head. "Your begging isn't enough. I want her here. I want her to kneel in this spot and tell me she was wrong. Otherwise, she can stay in that ICU and wait for her heart to rot, piece by piece." Without another glance, I went back into my cabin and shut the door, leaving Caleb Van der Holt kneeling in the dirt like a dog abandoned by its master. For Caleb returned to New York that same night, carrying my ultimatum. When Savannah heard my demands, she ripped the 4 from her arm. "He can go to hell. I would rather die than go back to that godforsaken swamp and kneel before that backwoods nobody." The outburst sent a fresh wave of agony through her chest. She curled into a ball on the hospital bed, shaking uncontrollably, her expensive pajamas soaked with cold sweat. Caleb watched her, his heart twisting in his chest. But there was nothing he could do. My word was law. Savannah's parents were crying beside the bed. "Savannah, please, just give in. Your life is more important. That man Kai is a devil. We can't win against him." Savannah bit her lip, her eyes filled with venomous rage. "He owes me. How can he do this to me? If it weren't for me, he'd still be rotting in that swamp. I'm the one who gave him a chance to see the world." A nurse nearby overheard and shook her head in disgust, quietly slipping out of the room. My God, the entitlement. She's living on his life force and thinks she did him a favor. People like that? Maybe they're better off dead. Ultimately, faced with the terrifying countdown to her own death, Savannah broke. A private jet, fully equipped with a medical suite, carried her dying body back toward the bayou. When the plane landed, half the community was there to watch the spectacle. Caleb helped Savannah down the ramp. She was dressed in designer clothes, but they couldn't hide the deathly pallor of her face. She looked at the muddy paths, at the curious faces of the locals in their simple clothes, and her expression was one of undisguised disgust, as if just being here was the ultimate insult. I was sitting on the porch steps of my cabin, whittling a piece of dry wood. Caleb supported Savannah as they walked slowly toward me. "We're here," he said, his voice hoarse. I lifted my eyes and glanced at Savannah. "Kneel." Her body went rigid. She stared at me, the hatred in her eyes so intense it was almost tangible. "Kai, don't you dare push me too far." I ignored her and went back to my carving. "If you're not on your knees by the time the sun sets, not even God can save you." The minutes ticked by. Savannah stood. Set. Neither of us moved. The locals formed a circle, pointing and talking as if we were sideshow. "She's knocking on death's door and still so arrogant. Right? What's pride worth when you're about to be 6 feet under? Look at the way she's glaring at us. You'd think we dug up her ancestors." Savannah's face grew whiter by the second. The pain in her chest came in waves, each one more violent than the last. She could feel something eating away at her heart. Fear finally broke through her pride. She looked at Caleb, her eyes welling with tears. "Caleb." He steeled himself, placed a hand on her shoulder, and pressed down firmly. "Kneel." Her legs gave out. Savannah collapsed, landing gracelessly in the mud at my feet. Splatters of dirt stained her expensive pants. She began to cry, not from remorse, but from pure humiliation. I stood up and walked over to her. I tossed a rough, clay bowl onto the ground in front of her. "You want to live? It's simple." I looked at her, Then at Caleb, my voice low but carrying clearly to everyone watching. Use that bowl. Fill it with the mud at your feet. Then I will add a drop of my blood, and you will drink all of it. The mud, the blood, everything. 5 As I finished speaking, a dead silence fell over the clearing. Even the gossiping locals gasped. Make them eat mud and drink blood? That was crueler than just letting them die. Savannah's sobs stopped abruptly. She looked up at me, her face a mask of disbelief. What did you say? Caleb, enraged, surged forward to attack me. You monster! How dare you treat her like this? I kicked his knee hard. He buckled and fell to the ground, landing on his knees right next to Savannah. Monster! I laughed. When she was dying in this swamp 3 years ago, it was this monster who saved her with his own blood. For 3 years, I cut my own chest open every single night to feed the conjure that kept her alive and well enough to play socialite in New York City. I wasn't a monster then, was I? Now, she breaks the bond to marry you. The conjure turns on her, and you both come running back to this monster for help. What's the matter? My blood was good enough for you before, but you're too good to drink it now? Every word was a slap in the face to Savannah and Caleb. Savannah's face cycled through shades of white and green. She had always assumed I'd use some kind of herbal folk remedy. She never knew that her life was sustained by the daily sacrifice of my own lifeblood. She called me dirty. She called me crude. She never imagined that she had been feeding on the very essence of the man she despised most. My eyes swept over the crowd of locals, and I raised my voice. Everyone, you tell me if this is fair. I saved her life. And how did she repay me? She ran around with another man and called me an obsessive, creepy stalker on the internet for the whole world to see. On her wedding day, she had her security beat me half to death and leave me in the mud. Now that she's dying, she comes back, begging me to save her. I'm asking her to drink a little mud with my blood in it. Is that too much? The crowd, swayed by my words, erupted. No, it ain't too much. That's what an ungrateful snake deserves. Kai, don't save her. Let her die. Yeah, let her die. We don't want her kind here. The tide of opinion had turned completely against them. Savannah and Caleb were trapped in the center of a hostile circle. For the first time, they understood what it meant to be truly alone. Here, their names, their status, their money, it was all worthless. The only person who could decide if they lived or died was me. Savannah looked at me, and for the first time, I saw genuine terror in her eyes. She was afraid. She was terrified of dying. The searing pain in her chest was a constant reminder that her time was running out. Her hands trembling, she picked up the clay bowl. Then, with her fingers, she began to scoop the wet earth, filling the bowl. It was a filthy mixture of mud, pebbles, and grass roots. Caleb watched her, squeezing his eyes shut. His face was a portrait of agony and shame. He knew that after today, he and Savannah would be the biggest joke in New York high society. But to live, they had no other choice. Soon, the bowl was full. Savannah held it out to me, her hands shaking so violently she could barely keep it level. I calmly took a small knife from my pocket and made a shallow cut on my fingertip. A single, dark red bead of blood welled up and dripped onto the mud, where it was instantly absorbed. Drink it, I said, pushing the bowl back toward her. Savannah stared at the contents, and her stomach churned. She retched, spitting up nothing but bile. But she didn't dare hesitate. She lifted the bowl, shut her eyes, and as if drinking poison, poured the entire contents into her mouth. The grit scraped her throat, the earthy, foul taste making her gag. She forced it down. When she was done, she threw the bowl aside and collapsed, dry heaving on the ground, unable to vomit. She looked like a pathetic, stray dog. I watched her, feeling nothing. That drop of blood would, indeed, temporarily pacify the conjure's backlash. But it would only last for 7 days. After that, if she wanted to live, she would have to come back and beg me again. And next time, my price would be even higher. I would make her repay every ounce of suffering she had caused me, slowly, in a crucible of endless pain and humiliation. 6 after Savannah drank the mixture of blood and mud, the intense pain in her chest subsided. She lay on the ground, gasping for air as if she had just been pulled from a river. Caleb immediately helped her up, and they scrambled back to the jet, fleeing the place that had brought them nothing but profound shame. As the jet took off, I remained on my porch, unmoving. The Kumu came and stood beside me, leaning on her staff. Kai, are you sure about this path? She asked. A betrayed blood conjure cannot be undone. By keeping her tethered to life like this, you're draining yourself as well. I shook my head. Kumu, I have no intention of letting her live. I just want her to experience every bit of the suffering I endured before she dies. The Kumu sighed and said no more. She knew my heart was already dead. The only thing keeping me going was hate. Back in New York, Savannah was checked into the most exclusive private wellness clinic. Caleb used all his influence to put a lid on what happened in the bayou. But there's no such thing as a secret among the rich. The story of how the Vanderholt heir and his fiancée had to kneel and beg a bayou faith healer and were forced to drink mud spread like wildfire through the city's elite circles. They became the biggest laughingstock in high society. Did you hear? Caleb Vanderholt threw all his dignity away for that Savannah Hayes. That's not the half of it. I heard she offended that healer, and now she has to go back every 7 days to beg for another dose. Each time is supposed to be worse. Serves her right. She had someone who literally gave his life for her, and she tossed him aside to climb the social ladder. Well, looks like she fell off the ladder. Might not survive the landing. These rumors were like daggers twisting in Savannah and Caleb's hearts. They became recluses, afraid to show their faces in public. Savannah spent her days in her clinic room, her temper growing more volatile. She broke things, screamed at the nurses, and took out her rage on anyone who came near. Meanwhile, I used the medical fees Caleb had wired to my account to open a small, specialty plant shop in the most expensive part of the city. I sold only one type of plant, a rare orchid from the bayou that emitted a faint, exotic fragrance. To the average person, the scent was calming and helped with stress. But to someone with a blood conjure bound to them, it was a poison that accelerated the parasite's agitation, doubling the pain of the backlash. My shop was right across the street from Savannah's clinic. Every morning, I would place the most vibrant, fully bloomed orchid in the front window. When the wind blew just right, its fragrance would drift into her room. I wanted her to live every single moment under my shadow. I wanted her to know that her life was in the palm of my hand. 7 days passed quickly. On the evening of the 6th day, the pain returned to Savannah's chest. This time, it was 10 times more powerful than before. She writhed on her bed, her screams echoing through the entire floor. The doctors gave her the highest possible dose of morphine, but it had no effect. Watching her in a state worse than death, Caleb knew he couldn't wait any longer. He dialed my number, the one I had left him when I departed the bayou. "Name your price," he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion and defeat. I was watering my orchids. "I don't want money this time. I want you to call a press conference. In front of every major news outlet in the city, you will announce that you are breaking your engagement to Savannah Hayes. And you will tell them why. Because she is disloyal and unfaithful. I want her reputation utterly destroyed." 7 Caleb was silent on the other end of the line. This demand was far crueler than making him kneel. The Vanderholt and Hayes families were joined by a business alliance worth billions. To unilaterally break the engagement and publicly drag Savannah's name through the mud would not only make the Hayes family a joke, but would also severely damage the Vanderholt reputation. As the family heir, his inability to control his personal affairs would erode his credibility within his own family. "You're forcing my hand." "Yes," I said simply, "or you can let her die in agony. Put her out of her misery." I could hear Caleb's ragged breathing over the phone, punctuated by Savannah's piercing screams in the background. I knew he had no choice. The next morning, the Vanderholt Corporation called an emergency press conference. Caleb himself was in attendance. Facing 100 cameras, his face drawn and pale, he made his announcement. "Due to issues regarding Miss Savannah Hayes' personal conduct, I am hereby announcing the termination of our engagement. From this day forward, we will go our separate ways." The room exploded. Reporters shot to their feet, shouting questions. "Mr. Vanderholt, what kind of conduct issues are you referring to? Was Ms. Hayes unfaithful? We've heard Ms. Hayes is seriously ill. Isn't it cruel to break the engagement at a time like this?" Caleb didn't answer a single question. After dropping that bombshell, he was whisked away by a security team. But it was enough. The city's gossip circuits went into overdrive. Savannah Hayes's name instantly became synonymous with shame and infidelity. The Hayes family's company stock plummeted, losing billions in a single day. Business partners who had once fawned over them were now lining up to terminate their contracts. The Hayes family was finished. Lying in her hospital bed, Savannah watched the news on television, coughed up a mouthful of blood, and passed out. When she woke up, her parents were standing over her. Their expressions held no sympathy, only bitter resentment and disappointment. "Look what you've done," her father yelled, jabbing a finger at her. "You've dragged the Hayes family name through the gutter." Her mother was sobbing. "How could we have raised such an ungrateful child? Now look, the Vanderholts have abandoned you, and our family is ruined." Savannah saw the disgust in their eyes and tried to explain. She wanted to say that she hadn't been unfaithful, that she was just trying to hold on to Caleb as her lifeline. But her excuses were weak and pathetic. She knew, in that moment, that she had truly lost everyone. Just then, my call came through. Savannah stared at the unknown number on her screen before finally answering. "Are you happy now?" she asked, her voice a hoarse whisper. "We're just getting started," I sneered. "Get over to my plant shop. Now, for every minute you're late, I'll let you feel a minute of the Conjure's backlash." Savannah didn't dare to delay. She struggled out of bed and, dragging her weakened body, took a cab to my shop. The air inside was thick with the scent of orchids. The moment she breathed it in, the pain in her chest flared. She clutched her chest, turning pale as she coughed violently. I emerged from behind the counter, holding a clear glass jar. Inside, a dark liquid swirled, and something within it moved faintly. "This is a young conjure," I said, placing the jar on the counter in front of her. "The one inside you is its sibling. Right now it's very hungry." Savannah stared at the jar, her stomach turning. She knew that thing was her only hope for survival. What do you want from me?" "It's simple." I pointed to a small sign in the window. It read, "Help wanted. From now on, you work for me. You will clean the shop, water the plants, and serve the customers. When I'm satisfied with your work, I'll give you the remedy. Until then, you will come here every single night to feed it." My gaze fell pointedly to her chest. Savannah flinched, a wave of cold dread washing over her. She understood. Every night, she would have to use her own blood to feed this creature, just as I had once done for her. It was a punishment far more humiliating than death. Savannah looked at me, her eyes hollow with despair. You're getting revenge on me." "That's right," I admitted freely. "Took you long enough to figure it out. You thought I was dirty, didn't you? Crude and uncivilized? Well, now you get to use your precious, high-society blood to feed my most treasured creation. Now, that is what I call fair." Savannah slumped to the floor, defeated. She knew she had no choice. To stay alive, she had to accept all my terms. From that day forward, the New York elite had a new favorite topic of gossip. The once glamorous Savannah Hayes was now working as a shop girl in a small, obscure plant store. She wore plain clothes, her hands growing rough from cleaning and tending to the plants. The arrogant pride was gone from her face, replaced by a numb, empty expression. Every evening, she would arrive at my shop on time. I would watch as she took a small blade, her hand trembling, and sliced open her finger to squeeze drops of blood into the glass jar. The creature inside would stir, greedily consuming her sacrifice. Each feeding was accompanied by her silent, choked sobs. I watched her suffer, but I felt no satisfaction, only a vast, cavernous emptiness. I was no longer the boy who found happiness in her smile. Now I was just a cold instrument of vengeance. Then one day, an unexpected visitor walked into my shop. It was Caleb Vanderholt. He was dressed casually, the old arrogance in his eyes replaced by a weary resignation. He walked over to Savannah, his voice filled with a complex mix of emotions. "Savannah, I found something out. About the toxin in your blood." Savannah looked up, her eyes vacant. Could anything possibly be worse than this? Caleb glanced at me, hesitating. I put down the watering can I was holding. "Go on, spit it out," I said coolly. "We're all friends here." Caleb took a deep breath, as if steeling himself. "Savannah, the toxin, you weren't born with it. It was put inside you." Savannah's pupils shrank. "What are you talking about?" "I pulled your old medical records," Caleb said. "Before you were 7, you were perfectly healthy. Not a single issue. Then, when you were 7, your parents took you on a trip to Louisiana. When you came back, you were diagnosed with a blood disorder. And for years, your parents have been secretly searching for someone skilled in a specific kind of Bayou folk magic, a transference. It's a ritual that can move an affliction from one person to another. The person they found was Kai. Savannah's face went bone white. She looked from me to Caleb, her expression one of utter disbelief. No, that's impossible. My parents wouldn't. They did it so you could marry into my family, Caleb said, his voice soft, but his words landed like hammer blows. The Vanderholt family has very strict requirements about the health of anyone marrying in. If you had a chronic condition, you have never been approved. They traded Kai's life for yours. They knew he was descended from a line of conjure workers. They knew if the toxin was transferred to him, he would be forced to use a blood conjure to suppress it in himself, which would in turn suppress it in you, the original host. That way, you wouldn't just live, you'd be completely free of any symptoms. Savannah swayed, nearly fainting. She had always believed her meeting with Kai was a coincidence. She thought he had saved her out of love. It was all a lie. From the very beginning, she was a pawn in a meticulously crafted game, and her own parents were the ones moving the pieces. I watched her shocked expression without a flicker of pity. I had known all along. I knew it from the moment her parents lured me into their scheme and I performed the ritual. I was just waiting for her to tear away the veil of lies herself, waiting for her to see that the privileged life she cherished was built entirely on my suffering. Now you understand, I said, walking toward her, my voice like ice. You were never an innocent victim. You enjoyed the benefits of their crime. That makes you an accomplice. Savannah stared at me, tears streaming down her face. The tragic illness she had built her identity around was nothing but a dirty secret. Her own parents had thrown her into this abyss. The dirty blood she had despised was the only thing that had ever kept her alive. Her entire world had just shattered. Savannah stumbled out of my shop in a daze. Caleb followed her, a grim expression on his face. The shop was quiet again, leaving just me and the silent, blooming orchids. I stared out the window at the glittering lights of the city. My heart felt as dark and still as the night sky. A few days later, Savannah's parents found me. They knelt on the pavement outside my shop, their faces streaked with tears. Kai, we're begging you. Please let Savannah go. We know we were wrong. We'll give you money, anything you want. Just please, spare our daughter. I looked at them coldly. Money. You traded my life for your daughter's future. You used my blood to keep her healthy for 3 years. Do you really think money can measure up to that? The Hayes trembled, terrified. They hadn't realized I knew the whole story. We were just trying to do what was best for Savannah. Her mother sobbed, and sacrificing someone else was what was best. I shot back. You treated her like an asset and used my life as part of the transaction. Now the deal has gone bad, and you think you could just pay me off. It's too late. I turned my back on them and walked back into my shop. They remained kneeling on the sidewalk, their desperate cries attracting a crowd of onlookers. What's going on over there? That's the Hayes. I heard their daughter owes her life to that Bayou healer. Her parents tricked him into taking on her illness so she could marry into the Vanderholt family. Disgusting. People like that deserve everything that's coming to them. The story exploded across social media. The Hayes family's reputation was irrevocably destroyed. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes were removed from their company's board, and Hayes Industries filed for bankruptcy. Everything they'd built their lives on turned to dust overnight. Savannah appeared in my shop one last time. She wasn't wearing designer clothes or any makeup. Her face was pale with a sickly, almost translucent quality. She walked up to me, the hatred in her eyes finally gone, replaced by a profound weariness. Kai, I give up, she said. You win. Now just tell me, how do I make it stop for good? I looked at her, my heart a placid, empty lake. The conjure inside you has merged with your life force. I explained. It can't be removed unless you die. But I can make it so you no longer feel any pain. I will perform a new ritual. This time, the conjure will not be tied to my blood. It will feed on your own life force. It will cause you no pain. You will simply fade, slowly, gently, a little bit more each day, until your life is completely spent. A tremor ran through Savannah's body. She understood. After keeping her alive in torment for so long, I was now offering her a peaceful death. It was the cruelest punishment of all. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She simply looked at me. "Okay," she whispered. "I accept." I took out a small wooden box. Inside, a translucent, crystalline creature lay dormant, emitting a faint, clean scent. It was the last of its kind, one I had nurtured with my own essence. It would not cause pain or backlash. It would only, silently, take a life. I placed the creature against her chest, where it dissolved into her skin. She felt nothing. In fact, for the first time in years, she felt a sense of lightness. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for letting me go." She turned and walked out of my shop. I watched her frail silhouette disappear into the night. My revenge was complete, but my heart had never felt so empty. 10 after Savannah left, my plant shop returned to its quiet routine. I watered the plants, swept the floors, and tended to the occasional customer. No one came begging for a cure anymore. No one even mentioned the name Savannah Hayes. She was like a shooting star that had burned brightly across the city sky before vanishing completely. Caleb came by sometimes. He was no longer the arrogant heir. He was just another customer who would sit quietly in the corner, nursing a cup of tea. He would watch me, a question in his eyes. "Don't you feel any regret at all?" he asked once. I shook my head. "I only did what had to be done." Caleb sighed. "I used to think I could control anything," he said. "Then I met you, and I learned there are things that money and power can't touch. Like a person's soul." He left after that and never came back. One spring afternoon, the bell on the shop door jingled, and a young woman with a bright, familiar smile walked in. "Hi," she called out cheerfully. "The Kumu sent me to find you. She said you weren't doing so well out here. She said the bayou is your home." It was Leilani, the Kumu's granddaughter, a girl I had grown up with. She brought news from home. She brought the elders' concern, and she brought with her a long-forgotten feeling of belonging. "Are you happy here, Kai?" she asked, her eyes full of genuine concern. I looked around at the rows of beautiful orchids, so vibrant and yet so deadly. I shook my head. "No," I said. "I'm not happy. This isn't my home." Leilani smiled. "Then let's go back. The Kumu said that even though you broke our traditions for an outsider, you did it to save a life. She forgives you, and everyone back home, they miss you.